Space has intrigued mankind since the beginning of time. The infinitely expanding universe that we live in has evoked the imagination of countless amounts of people throughout history. This has led us to wonder about the potential possibilities that are out there. With an exponential growing population, a changing and unpredictable climate, and a shortage of water, the colonization of another planet may come to mind as a possible solution to these crises. Some say that space exploration began with a race to the moon between the United States and the Soviet Union. This triggered the launch of the first man-made object into Earth's orbit, which was achieved by the Soviet Union in 1957 and 1961. This was followed by sending the first person into orbit. Shortly after, on July 20th, 1969, Apollo 11 successfully landed on the moon, and in that moment, mankind achieved the first manned moon landing. Today, targets have included Venus, Mercury, and even the Sun. One exploration project that is becoming a reality is a manned mission to Mars. Exploratory missions to Mars began in 1971. They started with collecting pictures and other preliminary data. In 1975, the Viking program successfully landed 2 rovers on Mars to begin land, soil, and biological exploration. In 2015, NASA's orbiter collected strong evidence that there may be irregular flowing of water on Mars. This is what sparked the idea to make Mars a habitable planet. So why else would we choose Mars? These are just some of the reasons why Mars can be a habitable planet for us. NASA, SpaceX, and Mars One are currently working on sending men to Mars. In fact, the leading exploration projects consists of potentially starting a human colony within 6 to 15 years. There are also many things to be considered. For example, the design of NASA's new Z2 spacesuit. This design is meant to allow enough mobility to explore Mars while satisfying the requirements needed to adequately protect a future Martian explorer. Unfortunately, the Z2 suit has not yet been tweaked in order to protect against extreme temperatures and radiation. Radiation exposure on Mars could cause chronic dementia and memory loss. NASA is looking into ways to reduce the radiation risks by thickening the spacecraft's shielding and using a protective suit, as mentioned earlier. Also, researchers are looking into developing drugs to protect the brain's circuitry. SpaceWorks is pitching the idea of putting astronauts in a state of stasis during the trip to Mars. The main reason to do this is to conserve mass. A conscious human demands a large amount of air, water, and food, and produces byproducts that will need to be handled in the spacecraft. Keeping astronauts in a state of stasis would greatly reduce the cost of the launch. The problem is that no one knows the mental and physical effects on a human body after being held in these conditions for a long period of time. It is obvious that space exploration can lead humans to discover new worlds with the potential of encountering new resources and new opportunity. However, there are many debates going on which discuss whether the large budget needed to fund missions to Mars should be focused on space exploration instead of helping the millions of people in need on Earth. Should we spend the money on space exploration, or should we use it to improve our own planet? Some believe that we should go out into our solar system and explore the possibilities that await us. There are also many others who oppose the idea of continuing with the space exploration and don't like the idea of colonizing Mars. Some claim that there is still so much left to be discovered on Earth, and so much of it is still being ignored. To conclude, there are still several questions to be resolved before colonizing another planet. For example, who would govern Mars once it is colonized? What laws would apply on such a planet? How can we justify the cost of colonizing Mars when we still have people living in poverty who are left with no food or education? Should we be turning to Mars for more resources because we exhausted our own? The colonization of Mars is becoming more and more viable as technology continues to improve. Keeping this in mind, there are still many unresolved arguments on whether Mars should be used as a habitable planet. There are many social, economical, and environmental considerations that need to be addressed and resolved before colonizing Mars and continuing with space exploration.